Dara, one of the most perfectly sprung tactical traps in all of ancient warfare. It is summer, 530 AD, the pre-dawn air thick with the iron smell of Mesopotamian dust when the ground begins to shake. 50,000 Persian soldiers, the elite Savaran cavalry leading, war elephants swaying at the rear like living siege towers, kettle drums crashing across the open steppe, pour toward the Roman fortress city. Their banners, crimson and gold, surge like a tide that has swallowed everything before it for 200 years. The earth does not simply tremble, it groans. Against them, 25,000 Roman soldiers. Half. Exactly half. And half of those, Arab mercenaries, Herulian federates, auxiliaries who have never fought a pitched engagement at this scale, are barely trained. The odds are not unfavorable, they are impossible. But the hunters have become the hunted. What the Persian commanders cannot see, what none of them understand as they march with absolute confidence toward Dara, is that the ground itself has been transformed. 3 weeks of silent, cold, invisible labor have turned this killing field into something else entirely. The Persians believe they are marching to a siege. They are marching into a grave already dug and waiting. Their certainty is their blindness. Their numbers will become their prison. The trap is already set. The Sassanid Persian Empire is the greatest military power on earth. For 200 years, it has pushed west without pause, and where it pushes, civilization bends. From the Euphrates to the Indus, from the Caucasus to the Persian Gulf, fear spreads like floodwater finding every crack. Their army is not merely large, it is generational, refined through centuries of conquest, hardened against every enemy the ancient world has produced. Amida, fallen. Singara, taken and burned. Theodosiopolis, besieged until its garrison survived on prayers and rats. Thanuris, where a full Roman field force collapsed in a rout, costing 8,000 lives. Each fallen city is a message written in fire. Your frontier is our frontier now. The great powers of the West responded with diplomacy. Constantinople sent envoys and gifts. The imperial court dispatched theological arguments, thick as a library, but thin on soldiers. The kingdoms of the Levant sent nothing. The world had every opportunity to build a wall against the Persian tide. It built documents instead. But there is one place the tide has not yet broken. A strip of eastern Roman frontier, anchored by a fortress city so new its walls still smell of fresh limestone, surrounded by flat, featureless steppe, offering no natural advantage to any defender. It is, strategically, exactly the ground where a smaller force should not fight. And yet, these men will not move, will not surrender, will not negotiate. This is the command of a young general barely 30 years old. The Persians have already learned to speak his name with cold fury. History will know him as Belisarius. His real name is Flavius Belisarius, born in Thrace around 500 AD, to a family of modest military service. History's names for him are more vivid. The Shield of the East, the last Roman, the boy who bled the empire's enemies white. The name Belisarius is his identity. The last Roman is his legend. The distance between those two things is a life of war. He did not choose the empire chose him. At 12 years old, pulled from his village by imperial recruiters, he was taken to Constantinople. Not as a soldier, yet, as a promising body, a talent to be trained and spent. He went unwillingly. The boy who left Thrace never came back. What returned, years later, was something else entirely. Inside the palace academies, he learned everything the empire knew, and everything its enemies knew. Greek tactics, Persian cavalry doctrine, studied from captured manuals until the concepts were embedded in muscle rather than memory. He learned the Sassanid language well enough to interrogate prisoners without translators. He learned their psychology, their contempt for defensive warfare, their belief that smaller forces always retreat. He rose through the imperial ranks on merit so pure it embarrassed men twice his age, winning glory in Moesia and along the Danube. But glory built on servitude is hollow. The moment came at Thanuris. He saw the orders that caused the rout. He saw the incompetence that murdered 8,000 men. He deserted. He rode hard. He went east to Dara. He arrived with 300 cavalry and a fury quiet enough to be dangerous. He raised the emperor's standard, not as a rebel, but as a commander who had decided the east would be held. "Never again," he told the garrison when he arrived. "Never again a position surrendered without a plan. Never again soldiers used as expendable material." He trained them for 2 years, drilled them, bound the Arab confederates and Herulian federates to him through the one force stronger than an emperor's orders: respect. When Emperor Kavad I finally spoke his name at court, it was not with admiration. It was with the flat, clipped fury of a man issuing an execution order. The storm was coming. The man sent to deliver that execution is not a stranger. He is Firuz, a senior Persian cavalry commander who once served as liaison officer in the same border region Belisarius now commands. They had shared meals, exchanged tactical analysis in the collegial language soldiers use during peacetime. Belisarius had trusted him with his thinking. Before Firuz, there was failure. At Minduos in 528, Belisarius had pushed his cavalry too far forward, onto ground that favored Persian lancers. He was countercharged before his infantry could support him. The cavalry broke. 3,000 Romans died. He rode back to Dara in silence, his armor dented, his judgment shattered in the specific way defeat shatters judgment. Not by making a man doubt himself, but by making him doubt his instincts. The world declared him finished. Firuz accepted gold from the Persian court. He accepted the title Commander of the East. Not yet a victory, but the promise of one. He accepted annotated intelligence briefings, cataloging every Roman mistake Belisarius had ever made. But what truly moved him was a promise less tangible than gold. He would be the man who ended Belisarius. Not defeated, ended. The name that had begun to echo through Persian military circles with grudging respect would be erased. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Now Firuz leads the 50,000. He rides at the column's head, having demanded the honor of personal command, having positioned this campaign not merely as a military operation, but as a correction, a reckoning delivered by someone who knows exactly how Belisarius thinks. He has sent word through back channels to reach Dara's garrison before the army does. Belisarius will not be offered terms. He will be destroyed, and the city with him, and every soldier inside it. This is not strategy, it is personal. The Persian host is fearsome in motion. The Savaran heavy cavalry, each man armored crown to stirrup in layered steel scales, ride in disciplined blocks that break infantry lines the way a hammer breaks clay. The Dylomite infantry, mountain fighters from the Caspian highlands, carry short swords shaped for suffocating close-quarters combat. 12 war elephants lumber at the rear, their size alone capable of panicking horses that have never seen them. The Hephthalite light cavalry thread through it all, men who shoot backwards at full gallop with the casual precision of instinct. They move, and the earth remembers it. Drums carry for 6 miles. In the villages along the line of march, doors shut before the outriders appear. Fields are abandoned. The silence of the fled is its own kind of thunder. Firuz rides with the ease of a man who has already written the ending. Dara, he tells his officers, is not a battle. It is a ceremony. What he does not know, what he cannot see, is that 3 miles ahead, in the flat plain between his army and the city walls, the trap is already closing. The courier arrives 3 weeks before the army. Belisarius reads the dispatch twice, sets it on the table, walks outside onto the eastern rampart, and stands there for a long time, staring at the plain that stretches featureless to the horizon. His captains, watching from below, say later that his expression did not change. Something shifted behind his eyes, and that was all. A plan forming. His calm before impossible odds is not performance. It is the specific quality that makes him extraordinary. He calls his senior officers at dawn. Hermogenes, the imperial envoy, Bouzes and Kutzes, the Thracian cavalry brothers, Sunikas, the Hunnic commander whose loyalty is personal. He tells them the truth. We have 25,000 men, perhaps 18,000 who can hold a line. They bring 50,000 with cavalry we cannot match in the open, and 12 elephants that will shatter our horses on first sight. A pause. But they do not know this ground, and we do. He rides alone for 3 days across the plain before Dara. Dawn, noon, dusk. He measures it the way a craftsman examines fine wood before the cut. Every subtle contour invisible in full light. Every place where soil composition changes underfoot. And then, 3 miles from the city walls, where the road narrows between 2 rises no more than 12 feet high, he finds it. Not dramatic, not a canyon or a forest. Simply the one location where a force moving in column will be channeled into a shape that destroys it. It is not just a battlefield, he says. It is a killing ground. He begins that night. 3 weeks of work, in darkness, without fires. Main trenches run perpendicular to the road, 5 feet wide and 8 feet deep. Floors lined with sharpened stakes angled toward the approach. The excavated earth hauled away in baskets and scattered, not piled at the lip where it would be visible. Trench openings covered with frames of thin wood and cut grass. They will hold a man's weight for 2 steps before collapsing. Secondary trenches angle off at 45 degrees, channeling any breakthrough into narrowing corridors where flanking units wait. 1,800 archers positioned on the 2 rises behind walls of cut brush high enough to conceal a standing man. Each man counts 60 arrows. The cavalry, Hunnic and Herulian federates, are kept 2 miles behind the city walls, where the sound of their horses cannot carry. They will not exist until they are needed. What none of Firuz's scouts can see, what none of his experienced outriders will detect, is that the killing ground is already complete. The night before the battle, a young soldier, barely 17, from a village near Antioch, whose harvest had failed 2 years running, finds an older Herulian warrior sharpening a blade he has already sharpened 3 times. He asks, in broken Greek, if the veteran is afraid. The Herulian looks at him. "Yes," he says, "but afraid means alive." Belisarius walks through the camp at midnight. He does not give speeches. He stops beside small groups of men and says, quietly, "Your family is behind those walls. Your children are behind those walls. You do not need to win. You need to hold." It is not inspiring. It is true. And truth before a battle is worth more than inspiration. He stands alone on the rampart after midnight, looking down at the invisible plain. Somewhere in the darkness, Firuz leads 50,000 toward him. Somewhere in that column are men he ate with, argued tactics with, trusted. War turns brothers into enemies, loyalty into betrayal. He uses that fact the way a smithy uses heat, as a tool, not a wound. Their confidence will be their blindness. Their numbers will be their prison. The stars wheel overhead. In the silence before dawn, his warriors take their positions. The Persian army enters the approach at mid-morning in full battle order. Firuz sends experienced outriders ahead, men who know what an ambush looks like, who know to look for disturbed ground, for the absence of animals where animals should be. The scouts ride the full approach at a canter. They see nothing. Empty valley, abandoned huts, no smoke, no movement. They report back. The path is clear. The army pours in. Officers joke about whether Belisarius will even dare to come out. Bets are placed on the hour of the city's surrender. Then, something changes. The wind dies. Birdsong stops. Even insects fall silent, as though the air itself has drawn a breath and held it. Horses grow nervous, ears back, hooves unsteady. One old Persian cavalry sergeant, a man who survived one ambush in his life and has carried the memory like a scar, looks up at the 2 low rises flanking the road and feels dread crawl up his spine. He opens his mouth. He never finishes the word. The trees fall first. Massive trunks, pre-cut and held by rope triggers released from the heights, crash across the road behind the vanguard. The sound is enormous, doubling back off the rises in an echo that disorients. Then the boulders, hundreds of them, loosened from both rises simultaneously, cascading down the slopes with the sound of rolling thunder, crushing men and horses in the compressed rear before the front understands what is happening. Then, from the rises, the arrows. Not a scattered volley, a black cloud. 1,800 bows releasing as one, then again, then again. The rate of fire sustains so ferociously that the sky above the column actually darkens. Wave after wave, 60 arrows each. The mathematics fall on the compressed formation like a sentence. The arrows do not stop. The column cannot spread. The secondary trenches prevent lateral movement, cannot form ranks, cannot hear orders above the screaming of men and horses. The copper smell of mass hemorrhage fills the mist. Then the Hunnic federates, Belisarius's hidden cavalry, surge from behind the city walls and crash into the already broken rear. The formation shatters completely. Men stumble into each other, trip over the fallen, slip in mud, now dark with blood. Then the ground opens. A mass of Persian infantry, surging blindly forward, hits the primary trench. The frames collapse. Dozens plunge 8 feet onto the angled stakes below. Their screams rise above everything, a sound the survivors will carry in their chests for the rest of their lives. The men behind them, pushed by the crush of bodies behind them, cannot stop. More fall. The secondary trenches swallow the flanks. The attackers cannot find solid ground. They cannot fight what they cannot see. Firuz, somewhere in the collapse, does what commanders do when certainty becomes catastrophe. He acts. He pulls 2,000 Savaran cavalry into a charging wedge, points at what appears to be a gap in the Roman line. "There!" he shouts. "Break through there!" The gap is real. It is not a failure of the Roman plan. It is the last feature of it. The Savaran surge forward, lances lowered, hooves thundering. For a suspended, terrible moment, sheer mass seems like it might carry them through. Belisarius raises his hand from the rise. 3 whistles. 6 boulders, held in reserve on the crest, release simultaneously, crashing directly into the path of the charge. 3 riders crushed instantly. The rest scatter. The wedge dissolves. The line shatters completely. Everywhere now, small, desperate groups fight surrounded and dying. The Roman defenders move through the terrain with terrible efficiency. They know every rock, every shortcut, every place the trench can be crossed and recrossed. Strike and vanish. Strike and vanish. The Persian numbers are now their catastrophe. Too many men, too narrow a space, unable to form the cavalry formations their training demands. One Persian officer takes 40 men up the left rise to capture the archer positions. 2 make it back down. By midday, it is over. The valley floor is carpeted with the dead. Abandoned weapons glitter in pale dust. Wounded horses drag themselves in slow circles. The stream runs a color that has no name in any language spoken by the living. Firuz escapes with fewer than 10,000 men. He rides without stopping. He does not look back. His face, by all accounts, is a mask of shock so total it has erased everything else. In a single morning, his future turned to ash. Belisarius dismounts slowly in the late afternoon. His sword is red to the hilt. His armor carries dents that will never press out. He walks through the aftermath, stepping between the fallen, moving without expression. His men shout his name. He does not respond. He stands in the center of the Valley of the Dead and looks at what the morning made. Then, quietly enough that only those nearest can hear, victory tastes like silence. He does not smile. There is no triumph in his eyes, only the particular weariness of a man who understood, before it began, exactly what it was going to cost. The next morning, the crows come before the sun. Work parties move through the aftermath in silence. The heavy, purposeful silence of men doing necessary work they would rather not speak through. The smell is enormous and specific, the kind men who survive mass violence report waking to for years afterward. Belisarius stands on the rampart alone, looking down at what was his battlefield, and is now simply a sight. His captains want to march, his soldiers want to sing. He does not permit it. He knows with precise clarity that this victory, however total, has not ended the war. They will come again and again, until he has no breath left. He holds that knowledge the way a man holds something heavy he has no choice but to carry. Then He looks at the pale limestone walls of Dara. But for this single, impossible moment, the East stands. News reaches Constantinople in 11 days. Justinian's court reads the numbers 3 times before believing them. 50,000 against 25,000, routed in a single morning. Roman losses, fewer than 1,200. The phrase, Battle of Dara, spreads through the empire like a signal fire. In Antioch, citizens light lamps in the streets. In Alexandria, the bishop announces it as divine favor. Hope flares across the Roman world. The kind of hope banked so low for so long that people had forgotten what it felt like burning. In Ctesiphon, Emperor Cavalry receives the report in absolute silence. He dismisses everyone. He walks alone to his private chamber and stares west, toward the desert between his empire and the Roman frontier. He will send more armies, more generals, more of everything destroyed at Dara. His empire has the depth for it. But in the privacy of that chamber, something new arrives in the space behind his eyes. A sliver of something that was not there before. Doubt. The name Belisarius turns in his mind like a blade. The question that has no good answer forms quietly, directed at the wall, at the desert, at the distant man who refuses to bend. Can an empire truly break someone who refuses to break? Military historians of every subsequent century have returned to Dara with the reverence reserved for battles that teach things armies still need to learn. The word most often used is masterclass, in terrain exploitation, in force multiplication, in the psychological use of preparation as a weapon deployed before the first arrow flies. West Point strategists and Byzantine military scholars have reconstructed the trench geometry. The asymmetry of the outcome made Dara the foundational case study for what later theorists called asymmetric warfare, turning an enemy's superior strength into the mechanism of his own destruction. In a world that constantly asks us to compromise, to bend, to accept, to give ground, his answer was always the same. What ordinary people remember is simpler than what scholars record. They remember the trench, the invisible thing that swallowed an invincible army. Grandparents along the eastern frontier told their grandchildren not about force ratios or tactical geometry, but about a young general who looked at flat, featureless, defenseless ground, the worst possible terrain for a smaller force, and saw in it the shape of victory. That image passed from mouth to mouth for generations. The man who looked at the impossible and found the plan inside it. If you want to explore more forgotten battles that changed the course of history and the extraordinary men and women who fought them, this channel is where those stories live. Belisarius never stopped fighting. He reconquered North Africa from the Vandals, retook Rome from the Ostrogoths, and went on fighting for an emperor who grew jealous of him, stripped his command, then recalled him when the empire needed him again. He aged in the field, not in a palace. In 565, an old man in Constantinople, he called to him a junior officer preparing to leave for a new posting. He had not spoken clearly for 2 days. He spoke clearly then. "Hold the ground," he said. "Not for the empire, not for the emperor, for the people on the other side of the wall." Then he closed his eyes. The plain before Dara is flat and windswept still. The same winds cross it that crossed it in 530, carrying the same dust, the same silence. The trenches are long filled. The fortress walls are rubble and memory. But the earth knows what was done there. Some victories outlast the empires that won them. Some men are remembered not by monuments raised in their honor, but by the simple, defiant fact that they held when holding seemed impossible. Invisible, patient, unbroken.